Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jaden and today I'm going to be telling you about all the books I read in January, starting with Prophecy, and I rated this one at 3.5 stars. So after saving Persephone, Azrael needs her help rescuing a child who might be the true heir to their kingdom. So it was okay read, but it took me a while to finish. Every time I read the name Persephone, all I could think of is the Greek mythology story of Persephone and Hades, and I couldn't separate my mind from that story while reading this one. It was a YA book, but at times it didn't read or feel like it. Some of the characters I mixed up, and sometimes I zoned out when they talked about the kingdom and the system that they all live in. With that, I just stopped caring when they started talking about the ladder. Ending was kind of predictable, and there's more in the series, but I don't think I'm going to read more based off how I feel about this one. I also liked the second half of the book more than the first half. It was just a lot more interesting than what the first half offered. The second book I read was Merry Christmas, You Filthy Animal, and I rated this one a 4.25 stars. So Betty's uncle wants her help setting up a rival Christmas tree farm against Max's family, and Max starts a plan to make her fall in love with him to stop her. So book was very cute, and I liked it a lot more than the other book I've read from this author. It made me laugh and giggle a lot, and the enemies to lovers was well done. It is part of a trilogy, but you don't have to read the first one to know what's going on in this one. It just lets you know kind of what was going on with the side characters. Betty's rambling did get annoying at times, and I had to yell at the book to stop because this is one of the issues I had with her other book. The character would just ramble, and I'm just like, shut up, shut up. Plus, I had the third act breakup in the last 30 pages that felt very rushed at the end. And then, because of the breakup, the happily ever after for them just felt really rushed and was just trying to get them back together as fast as possible, so it just didn't work for me. Neighbor was a fun touch, and I really enjoyed the illustrations inside. It really helped with the story. It makes me want to read the first book in this series because I enjoyed this one so much, especially the characters and the Christmas movie Easter eggs. The third book I read was Make Me a Monster, and I rated this one 3.75 stars. So Mecca's family owns a funeral home, and she works there, but when tragedy strikes, she finds out her family does more than just funerals. So I liked it a lot more than I thought I would. Book with the subject matter in hand gave me Death Becomes Her vibes. If you've seen that movie, you sort of know what I'm talking about. The tragedy of who dies in Mecca's family I wasn't expecting. From the context clues we got, I thought it was going to be somebody else, so it was a great twist to finding out it was somebody else. I liked where the second half of the book took off more than the first half. It was a lot more intriguing and interesting and drew me in. Imagery is really great. I didn't feel overly grossed out, especially with what they were talking about. Ending is okay, along with the explanation about it. It just felt kind of rushed, along with the last few pages and how the book ends. The cover was really pretty though, and I really like the end pages. The title actually makes a lot more sense once you read the ending of the book, because I was reading it, I'm like, the title doesn't make sense, and then you get the ending and you're like, ah, this is why it makes sense. The fourth book I read was The Nanny, and I rated this one 4 stars. So Cassie needs a job and finds one as a nanny, but finds out her employer used to be her main subscriber on OnlyFans. So I wanted to read this book for a while, and it was a good slow burn. Had a lot of similarities with the Strawberry Pancake House by Laurie Gilmore, even though this book came out first. Whether by the job, occupations of the characters, the names of the characters, or just similar plot, those two books just seemed really similar. I found a lot of similarities of this book with that book, even though this book came out first. I hated the third act breakup in this book, but then they get back together, and then the epilogue happened, so it was okay. I liked the OnlyFans messages, or the thoughts during that time, and we get that at the end of each chapter. Wish we got more of it, but it was good taste of their relationship before Cassie becomes the nanny. Book made me laugh and yell at it sometimes based off characters' actions or how much the book was left with the plot development. It was just really, really good, and I enjoyed it a lot, and I really like this author, and we'll get back to that later in this video. So after that, I read Heated Rivalry, and I rated this one 5 stars. So Illy and Shane are rival hockey players, but off the ice there's something more, especially to each other. So I wanted to read this book after watching the show, and the book did not disappoint. Very fast read, based off the writing style and how it flowed. Great chemistry between Ilya and Shane, and there were a lot more sex scenes than I thought there were going to be. Like, I knew they cut some stuff out with the show, but there was a lot more than I expected. But I'm not complaining since they were all great. There's no third act breakup, but I do like breakup in their own kind of situationship. I love the teases for the long game and where that will hit the characters, plus the mentions of other characters that have their own book, which I will probably get to next month. Just really excited for the characters, and I can't wait to see what happens next for them. And I really liked the epilogue with Hayden, and I'm excited to see how that leads into the book and what's going to happen with that in the show when it comes out, hopefully next year. After that, I read Roleplay, and I rated this one 4.25 stars. So after accidentally paying escort Forrest $10,000 while high, Sora used him as inspiration for her book. So actual plot of the book doesn't happen until almost 200 pages in. It's just them learning who each other is and like them knowing each other as people before like we actually get to the plot of the book. And the book is 450 something pages. So it's like we almost halfway through the book before we actually get to the plot of the book, like the book promised me. It's mostly a slow burn, and then the main conflict starts. Growth of both characters was good, and it was a fast read. Few sex scenes, but they were well deserved after a long time of them like learning about each other and what kind of relationship they want. Cover art looks like, so the Forrest to me looks like Charles Manson, and then his daughter looks like McKenna Grace, just in my opinion. I wish that more tropes were explored rather than just the few we got. And the conflict at the end wasn't a third act breakup, but it was a way to cause conflict in the last third of pages that gets dissolved like 5 seconds later. Like, you could have taken that out and nothing would have changed story-wise. Nothing. Also wish we got a solid conclusion on Legendary, since it got brought up basically throughout the entire book, and then it just like gets a quick mention at the end, and it's like you are leading up to this, and that's and that's all we get. Like, okay. It was a very fun read though. After that, I read The Witch of Colchis. I don't think I'm pronouncing that right. And I rated this one 5 stars. So it's a retelling of the story of Medea. I really, really enjoyed this book and finished it pretty fast. It sucked me in. It had a lot of cool and beautiful lines in the book that I underlined or marked. How Jason was integrated to the story felt early in my opinion, but it made sense as the story progressed why he was introduced so early. Medea's complexity as a character was well done, that at times I felt bad for her, but also was rooting for her to cause hell. Like, I've read retellings of this character before, so I knew what was going to happen. But while reading, I didn't want them to happen, or there were foreshadows that I'm like, I don't want this to happen to these characters. I have mixed feelings on the last chapter because I just didn't feel it was necessary. Plus, there was some light confusion for me. But it was used to connect Medea and her sister back, and just have them be together maybe one more time. I read I Bet You Look Good in a Coffin, and I rated this one 4 stars. So Kitty Collins has been murder-free, but might go back on her murdering streak when Blaze Bundy happens on her screen. So this is a sequel to How to Kill Men and Get Away with It, which I read last month, and I liked this one a lot more than the first one. Book actually had a plot and kept me intrigued. I liked seeing Kitty's eternal struggle what happens when she says, F it, I'm just gonna kill again. Who Blazes was kind of disappointing and more of like a oh, which left the rest of the book feeling rushed, especially the last 20 pages with how the book ended. But I do want to see more of Kitty's story because how the book ended. I just want to read more of her story. From I think from the first book to the second book, it was like a 3-year gap. So I might have to wait, another 3 years to read more about Kitty, which, yay me. Plus, I really liked her story, and I want to know what's going to happen with her and Charlie after what happened, because I thought the relationship was going to go one way and then went another way, and I just want to see them get back together after what he finds out. After that, I read The Mating Game, and I rated this one 4 stars. After finding out she's a late-stage Omega Wolf, Tess deals with that while renovating a lodge owned by an Alpha Wolf. So this is a sequel to Fake Mate, but you don't really have to read Fake Mate to read this one. Like, the characters get mentioned from that book, but you don't have to know what's going on. I finished it in a little more than a day, and the book reminded me of Mate by Ali Hazelwood. As the premise was similar, but I liked this one a lot better. Mate was made before this book, but just like the premises were very similar. Good chemistry and character arcs that were both relatable, and I felt called out. Great sex scenes, like, wow. How often Tess was called small or tiny compared to Hunter, because he's a giant, got really annoying really fast. Like, I get it. She's tiny, he's a giant. This is very Ali Hazelwood coded. I wish we got more of an explanation of how Tess became an Omega. Like, it's explained, but it isn't very explained well for me. And I was wanting more of an explanation. And I wish that heat got expanded more than just the small heats we got and then the big one. Like, the small ones and then big. I wish they had been, like, more spaced out. So the big one felt more earned. And I wish they were in their wolf forms more often because we only see, like, Tess in it, like, maybe 1 or 2 times. And that was my favorite part of the book. So I wish we got more of that. After that, I read Fairy Tale Retellings Volume 1, and I rated this one 4.25 stars. So this is 2 tales of 2 elven princes told through fairy tale retellings. So I enjoyed this book a lot, and this book had stained edges, which I loved. Cover is really pretty too. The fairy tales themselves were well written, and you could definitely recognize some familiar stories or tropes. First story was a lot better for me than the second one. The latter kind of confused me, and then they get back together way too fast, and the ending felt rushed. At least in the first one, we got more of, hey, the story happens, and we get an epilogue of, like, okay, the curse is broken, she's going back to her people. I like that. Good sex scenes, though there's a lot more in the first one than the second one. I was iffy on the prose in the beginning of this book, but it sucked me in. I can't wait to read more of the series after we got teases of the other princes in this one. After that, I read Girls with Dark Divine, and I rated this one 4 stars. So Emerlyn and her troop sisters are cursed by their dance troupe manager, who uses them like puppets to his every whim. So book starts off immediately, which I wasn't expecting based off the book synopsis. The book synopsis kind of made it seem like, oh, we would know who Emerlyn is, and then we would have her meet the troupe, and then she gets sucked into this. No, she's already in the troupe. She's already become a puppet in the first place. Book was solid read. It was good. Some things were predictable with the story, especially when it came to Etini. Like, I figured out what was going on with him faster than our main character should, which I don't think is very good. The curse itself is interesting and how it gets started in a person. Plus, I really like the dilemma that Malcolm gives Emberlyn at the end. It gives good character development, and I like what it leads to the end for our characters. After that, I read Slayers of Old, and I rated this one 3.75 stars. So Jenny, Annette, and Temple get roped back into old Slayer business when weird things start happening in town, and a new Slayer needs their help. So really good writing that sucked me in during the first few pages. I really enjoyed the story, especially with Jenny and Annette's history and who they are connected to, whether by goddesses or just by their history. I liked the ending of each chapter and how it was leading to who our bad guy was. and what he was planning. Though I wish this reveal hadn't happened like halfway through the book, because then the rest of the book kind of dragged, because we already knew who it was. Our characters already knew who it was. Then they had the person cornered, and then they get away, so the book can get dragged out. And I'm like, if you had waited, then it wouldn't feel as rushed. It wouldn't feel as dragged, because you realize you spoiled who the bad guy is, and now you have to drag out the rest of the book so that way the book can be longer. It just kind of irritated me. How Ronnie got mixed in with our main three was also a little clunky to me, but I liked his dynamic with them. I do have a small nitpick with this book. So in the book synopsis of the book itself, it made it seem like a certain plot point was going to be more important. But that plot point doesn't happen until like the last 30 or 40 pages. So that just irritates me. So if you're looking forward towards that plot point, that doesn't happen until the end of the book. So just fair warning. After that, I read Please Don't Lie, and I read that one 4 stars. So after escaping her past, Haley moves in with her husband to his childhood house in the middle of nowhere where nothing is what it seems. So it was a solid read that had me finish it in like a day. Story kept on my toes, especially as I thought the story was going to go one way and went another way. Reveal at the end wasn't what I expected. I liked Haley's arc and story, and I liked her reasoning to be friends with Megan. Did also like the newspaper headlines and Haley's scrapbook, and the ending was kind of meh for me. Like really? That's where our characters end. It just didn't work for me. It didn't feel right for my character. It didn't feel right for me for that's where the characters ended up. It's like, really, you're gonna have them like sort of live happily ever after, and they're at this conference, and it's just like, I don't think so. I don't think so. It just did not work for me. The second to last book I read was Better in Black, and I read this one 4.5 stars. So this is 10 romance stories featuring different couples in the Shadowhunter series. So I haven't read anything Shadowhunter related in almost 3 years. So this is my introduction back into them. And I really enjoyed this book. Even though I had to Google or try to remember who some of these couples are because I couldn't remember who they are. Even Google was not very helpful. I like looked up a certain couple and they're like, here's some fanfic. I'm like, I don't want fanfic. I just want to know who these people are. I really enjoyed all these stories, and I liked how some of the side characters of some of the stories were in other stories, so they were kind of connected, so I really liked that. Luke and Jocelyn's was my favorite story to read, and then most of the stories kind of followed a similar beat. They were happy, something bad happens, and they have to fix it, and then everything's hunky-dory at the end, and then they want to have sex. They infer sex because it's a YA book, but it's like, okay, I like read 3 of those in a row. I'm like, okay, I see how this is going. I still enjoyed these characters, and like seeing them and what was going on with them. I liked how a couple of these stories are alluding to the next Shadowhunter books, and I'm excited to see where these characters go. Since I've started reading these books like when I was in middle school, and I'm like in my mid-20s now, so I'm excited to see where the rest of the series goes. And then the last book I read of January is Hook and Jill, and I read this one 3.25 stars. So this is a retelling of Peter Pan, but it focuses more on Wendy and her relationship with Hook. So it's less than 300 pages, but it felt like it dragged on personally for me, especially after the halfway point. Writing was kind of iffy for me. Like, it would work one chapter, and then the second chapter, it wouldn't work. It was just so wonky. Story is interesting, but I felt it could have been better. Like, the story starts off immediately, which I'm not a fan of. Like, we're already in Neverland when the story begins. Like, Wendy, John, and Michael, they've been in Neverland for who knows how long. So it's just like, okay, we're already starting off here. Okay. I thought that Wendy fell for James way too fast, and the chemistry just felt off for me, especially in the beginning when she's already like hot for him, and I'm like, dude, I just met you, you're just threatening me. Why am I getting all hot and heavy for you? And I'm like, chill, girl, just chill. was done with Peter Pan and the Croc, I thought was interesting, especially what happens to the latter and what they do with him at the end. There's more in this series, but I don't think I'm going to read it based off this one. It's just I didn't feel connected to the characters. I felt some of it was just kind of rushed. I was told this was kind of like a smutty thing, and the smutty stuff doesn't happen until like more than halfway through the book, and it's not. I wanted details and graphics. I'm like, okay, that's it, and it just kind of glances over. I'm like, this is not really smutty. This is just like, oh, and they have sex, and he was passionate with her, and I'm like, it's not what I wanted. I didn't really believe them as, like, when they first started falling for each other, I just didn't believe them as a couple. It just didn't ring right with me, especially since, like, she's supposed to be growing up, but, like, I don't know how old Wendy is, or is supposed to be, so it's like, she's growing up, but, like, how old is she? Like, and, like, it kind of lives on a cliffhanger with a little bit with Peter Pan, but I'm not that interested in reading more. This might be an instance when, like, the first book is bad and the other two are good, but I just don't want to read more. I'm not invested enough to read more. So those are all the books I read in January. If you have any recommendations for February, let me know down below. Otherwise, I'll see you next month. Bye!